Hey, y'all. Let me know if you can hear me okay. I've got my mic over here, but I want to make sure it's working because I want you guys to hear me. I'm going to throw a little comment in the chat. I'm going to see if I can, let's see. We're going to see if I can pin something, but we'll see. The fun ins and outs of setting up a live stream. Okay. Okay, so I put a comment in the live chat. I can't seem to pin it the way I would on Instagram, but that's okay. So if you are looking at some point to tip me during the show, there's a comment over in the comment section. It's over here for me. I don't know if it's the same for you guys, where you can Venmo me or PayPal me. Well, I guess we should do a little intro. Hello. If you haven't been to one of my live streams before, I used to do them on Concert Window quite often. And I like to start by, if you're comfortable, asking people to sound off in the chat and kind of say hey and say where you're watching from, because that's always fun. And I think especially with YouTube, I have a little bit of a different audience on YouTube, so it'd be interesting to see where everyone's watching from. So if you're so inclined, feel free to throw a comment in about where you're watching from, and we're going to give people a couple minutes to hop on before we start. But just to, again, give a little intro. So this live stream specifically is in honor of May being National Mental Health Month in the US. Mental health has always been a huge theme in my music, has popped up, on various songs, EPs, etc. I've become, I would say, more open about talking about it in the last few years, which was not an easy progression, and we'll talk about that. So I'm going to sing some songs that specifically came from, difficult moments for me with mental health and kind of just figuring out how to manage it, and just different moments that were difficult for me. And then I'm also going to be answering some questions from you guys in between. So I have a couple of questions here that you guys have been asking throughout the week. So I have some prepared. If time allows, I would like to also be able to answer some from you guys live, depending on, how things go. Because if you've watched a live stream of mine before, you know that they tend to run long, and I don't want to keep you guys too long. I know it's a Friday night, but still. I'm gonna go ahead and just scroll in the comments. This is what I love about live streams, is that as much as I love local live shows, that those have a very special energy, and I grew to like those a lot. But what I love about a live stream is I look in the chat and there's someone watching from France, someone watching from Singapore, someone watching in Boston who's from New York, someone watching from Brazil. Like I just love seeing everybody kind of sound off. We've got quite a few people watching from the other side of the clock, which I love. So good morning to those of you for whom it is morning. I hope this will not be too heavy of a way to start your morning. And, I do like to keep it kind of light, because the songs that I play, as most of you probably know, tend to be more melancholy. And I like to try to keep it a little more light between songs. So I think we're going to start. And I'll chat to you guys in between songs. But I want to start with a song I wrote relatively recently, and I think it kind of exemplifies a good split that I sometimes feel with my mental health, where it's very easy to feel kind of dragged down and defeated by low points in my mental health, what I would call kind of the depressive end of the spectrum. And then there are moments where feeling that makes me really angry and really frustrated because I feel like I can't manage it very well, or it's kind of taking over. So I wanted to write a song that kind of showcased those two sides where, you know, you're feeling bad and kind of passive, but also bad and active. So it is a song about feeling bad, but I think it's also a song about wanting to regain control, which I think a lot of us kind of want right now. So this is a song called My Mother Says. Tuesday, 2 p.m. and I haven't left my bed. Something holds me quick. Molasses stuck between my ribs. Ain't that witty, easy to follow, make it pretty, easy to swallow. Pretend as if I can stand this place when I can barely stand up someday. Barely stand up someday. I wanna hit the walls until they break. Somebody say to me I'm no mistake. I'm an inch of kindness, but I know that if I want to find it, I'll have to bear my throne. How can I? And my mother says being sad sometimes is alright. Your age, God knows, so was I. How do I tell her it's a constant haze? It's the sky breaking over me all the time, breaking me all the time. I wanna hit the walls until they break. Somebody say to me I'm no mistake. I want an inch of kindness. I don't know, am I being spineless? If I bear my throne, how can I? I wanna stop pulling my hair out, the noise between my temples, settle down. I want an inch of kindness. I know that if I want to find it, ooh, I want an inch of kindness. I know that if I want to find it, if I want to find it. Nice little delay on the end there. So that was My Mother Says. Let me know also, because it sounds loud to me in the room, but let me know if the electric guitar is too loud and drowning out my voice. Most times it shows up differently in the mic than it does when I'm hearing the amp. Let's see, scrolling through. A few more, let's see. Indonesia, Jersey, Switzerland, Tennessee, Florida. Malaysia, UK, Mexico. There's so many countries and different places. I love this, you guys. Wow. The live stream heard around the world. All right. Let's see. I think I'll do one more song and then we're gonna take a question break. So we'll break it up that way. This song, I would think a lot of you know. This song was on my 2016 EP, the Shoebox EP. And this is one of the first songs I would say that I wrote explicitly about mental health. And it was definitely a watershed moment for me. I wrote this song about and while I was living abroad. And it was a great time in a lot of ways. And I really am grateful for that time, but it was also a really difficult time. I was, very far away from everyone I loved. I was trying to get used to kind of cultural day-to-days. And I was living in France. I'm half French. I'm fluent, but it's different to live somewhere rather than visit. And I just found myself getting really hung up on little things and getting really frustrated with myself and not wanting to leave the house. And very long story short, it was while I was there that the first doctor I ended up seeing about it suggested that I might have some form of an anxiety disorder. And this song was less about that and less about kind of the diagnosis as much as trying to articulate what it felt like. Because it's a very weird feeling, as I'm sure a lot of you know. So I haven't played this in a little while. It's a song called Antidote. Empty ribs in an empty room, so fragile you can see right through. Thinking I'll heal if I just don't move. Then comes that voice saying you're a fool. Been trying to write for months now. Hush the worst of thoughts with words out of my mouth. What can you say when your heart's gone out? I'd ask for a light, but I am much too proud. Here it comes, hot like a fever. I can't run, helpless to the burn, telling me love you'll never learn. I am the haunted and I'm the ghost. I am the hand wrapped around my own throat. I am the poison, where is my antidote? All the boys, they push my name between their teeth, like I'm the killer and not the nicotine. But maybe I am, maybe there's something about me, a bitterness in my bones, though God knows I was trying for sweet. Here it comes, hot like a fever. I can't run, helpless to the burn, telling me love you'll never learn. I am the haunted and I'm the ghost. I am the hand wrapped around my own throat. I am the poison, where's my antidote? Breaking down from the inside out, clench my fist, can't just give it all up. I'm made of more than this. Ooh, I'm made of more than this. Here comes, hot like a fever. I won't shut the voices out. No more will I burn myself down. I am the haunted and I'm the ghost. I'm tired of haunting. Open the window. Draw out the poison. I am my antidote. I am my antidote. So that's Antidote. It's quite fun actually playing it that way because it's quite a layered track. I think we did something like 4 or 5 different guitar parts on it. So, I don't play it live very often because it's tricky to know how to play it live when it's just me. But it has a certain something when it's just me and the electric. So, part of this live stream, because it's focused on mental health and being really open about mental health, especially right now, part of this live stream is answering some of your questions, because this is a weird, I know you've heard it a million times, it's a weird, uncertain time, and I know I've been struggling a lot. Personally, I know me and a lot of people feel like this time is really regressive in terms of mental health, where progress we felt we made is kind of erased by what's going on, because it's a really scary time and it's hard. It's just hard. So here we go. I have a couple of questions already prepared here. And since we're talking about anxiety, I'll go to the questions that concern that first, because I've talked a lot about having anxiety. I've been diagnosed with an anxiety disorder for about 5 years. And the way I like explaining it, because people say, well, do I have anxiety? An anxiety disorder just means that you feel anxiety, which is a completely normal human emotion, more than other people, and often in a very irrational way. Where you have, spirals of irrational thoughts, or it's just harder to shake. But having anxiety as an emotion is very normal, very human. Like, having anxiety doesn't necessarily mean you have a disorder or you need a diagnosis. It's just up to you and kind of what you feel and the guidance you feel you need. But I just wanted to, friends of mine have been asking, like, do I have anxiety? I'm like, well, you probably feel anxiety. Yeah. So I have a couple of questions here from Heather Delirium. What does your anxiety feel like? Are you able to differentiate normal nerves from anxiety? And does your anxiety ever feel invalidated because you don't experience X symptom or feeling? So my anxiety personally is very physical, very physical. So when I first got that suggestion of anxiety from that first doctor. It was because I went to the doctor because I was having all these really strange symptoms that I'd never had before. Where I was having like chest pains and pressure, and I couldn't feel like I could take a deep breath in the morning or anytime. I was just feeling really like lightheaded. I would get hot flashes sometimes, like just stuff that had never happened to me. So my anxiety, sometimes feels like that. In general, it feels like physically, I do tend to get chest pain. Not a great thing to have right now, right? But it feels like a vice kind of around my chest where it is hard to take a breath. It's sore almost. In terms of it being able to differentiate it from normal nerves, yeah, I would say in that way where like the anxiety feels kind of more tight and constricted, where like when I'm anxious, a lot of my body tenses up. And that's often how I know that I'm anxious, is I've been holding in a lot of physical tension. Nerves, I would say, are different for me because they're kind of like more hot and loose. Like the kind of nerves I get before a show are very like jittery and hot, and I feel kind of weird. Anxiety is much more kind of constricted and painful for me. Preface everything when I say by, this is my experience. So I don't want you to think that something you're feeling isn't right or isn't valid just because I'm saying something different. Speaking of which, does your anxiety ever feel invalidated because you don't feel X symptom? I wouldn't say that necessarily. I would say my anxiety sometimes feels invalidated in other ways. Kind of in the, I would say actually the flip side, where like, I've, like that first time, I've had a lot of moments where I've had physical symptoms that are really scary and are really new, and had a lot of moments where I thought something really serious medically was happening. And it turned out to be physical manifestations of stress and anxiety. So I wouldn't say my anxiety felt invalidated so much as it felt, it felt the opposite, where it was like I couldn't tell what was anxiety or not, which is frustrating. So that's that on anxiety for now. I do want to kind of move through because we've got some songs still. Let's see. So I'm gonna actually put down the electric for a minute, and let's see. I'm just gonna take a little glance in the chat. Cheers from Michigan. Hello. Oh, you guys are so lovely. Y'all are just so lovely. So we're gonna do some songs now. Okay. This one, oh my God, do I remember how to play it? So I actually put out this song very recently. This is a song I wrote inspired by our pandemic predicament and some other things. So I wrote this song in the first couple of weeks of self-isolation for me. Very weird time, like I thought I was going to be super used to it because I am very much of a hermit. But it was hard to adjust in other ways. So this song kind of came out of that, kind of being home a lot and time starting to feel really fluid, and like the hours were just kind of slipping into each other and you lose track of time, and it's 4 p.m., that kind of thing. And that happened in self-isolation, and it continues to happen. But for me, that has also happened to me before. It happens when I'm in what I would call a depressive episode where, I really lack motivation. My emotions are kind of low or numbed, where I don't leave the house very often. And again, time kind of becomes more of a concept than something that's real. And a long stretch where I was unemployed and, I wasn't leaving my house very much because I was just trying to get a job and not spend money. And it was pretty miserable. So I wrote this song about how weird time feels. And I put it out as a video on my YouTube channel, and it is available as a track on my Bandcamp. So if you have not heard it, seen it, and you like it, it is available in all those forms for you. And I would recommend watching the video because I had a lot of fun filming it while I was in true quarantine. So yeah, this is a song called The Hours. grave. I can't possibly write one more song about rain. Sunday old sheets. Why bother to leave them when there's no one waiting? Woke up at 5. Let my candles burn past the suggested time. I don't think I'd mind. Maybe something aflame would make me feel alive. I don't know where the hours go. I don't know what swallowed me like a coin in a gumball machine. Sometimes people call and I talk pretty loud 'cause I feel pretty small, so they don't catch the fear rattling hung around my neck. It's my own goddamn fault. Crave the sound besides me breathing. No, I don't count the sirens screaming. I want out. I don't know where the hours go. I don't know what swallowed me. I don't know where the hours go. I don't know. I don't know where the hours go. I don't know what swallowed me. I don't know where the hours go. I don't know what swallowed me. Like a rowboat at sea. I gotta say, I really enjoy that one because it's one of my favorite kinds of songs. Is deceptive, where it sounds upbeat, even though it's about something a little more melancholic. Let's see. No, I'll do one more acoustic one. This is a song. This is another one that's off the Shoebox EP. And I wrote this at a time when collectively a lot of people I knew were going through a hard time and kind of not able to see the light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. And it has continued to be relevant in different parts of my life. And I feel like it's really relevant right now in a time when, you know, none of us can really see what's going to happen. And it feels a little difficult to look ahead and hope for the best. And it's based off something that my dear friend Rose has always said to me, which is everything looks better in the morning. And she is usually right. So this is a song called Morning. I've been writing letters to myself, to my friends. They haven't quite come out right. Too much broken, too much to mend. I'm walking too heavy, disillusionment thick in my veins. I'm heartsick and I'm tired. Oh, isn't that the same? Aren't they the same? Mother, mother, I swear I looked for the light and I saw nothing there. But mother, mother, I swear if morning will rise, then I will get there. But now where do you shelter? Where do you go from here? When the mirror shows three faces, anger and anguish and fear. I thought I knew what hope looked like. I thought I knew how to breathe. But it's all gone too far, and my head's begging my heart to stop, giving it bad dreams. Mother, mother, I swear I looked to the sky and saw a storm brewing there. But Father, Father, I swear if morning will rise, then I will get there. Mother, mother, I swear I thought I was brave and that this world was fair. But Father, Father, I swear, yeah, I've seen the bottom of the deepest wood, and even down in the dark, if there is nothing else, I know morning is waiting to rise, and so am I. And I will get there. So that's morning. So if things feel a little difficult for you right now, I can't promise anything, but I generally find that the light of day is helpful. I'm gonna do some questions, but I'm just gonna scroll and make sure I'm not missing anything. Have you ever met someone who feels anxiety like you do? Yes, I have some friends who do feel their anxiety very physically. I would say I have fewer who have, like the really kind of bodily, worried about medical things anxiety. It does have a name. It's called health anxiety, where not only does little flyway there, not only do things manifest physically, but the physicality becomes a source of anxiety. So for me, it manifests where, like, if I feel something weird in my body, I start to freak out about it, which is a bummer. And it's something I'm really working on. Yes, I do have some friends who feel anxiety very physically. I do have a smaller number of friends who have some form of health anxiety. And that's really helpful to be able to kind of bounce off them and text one of those friends and say, like, hey, do you have some space for an anxiety thing? And if they say yes, I say, hey, I'm feeling this kind of thing. And because they understand what that feels like, they're able to kind of reassure me. So, you know, the point of this live stream is to be really open and really just talk about things honestly as regards mental health. And I would really recommend doing the hard work of being vulnerable with people you care about and people you trust, because if all goes well, you know, that will be reciprocated, and it's really helpful to have people that you can lean on and just quickly shoot a text to in times like that. You guys are so lovely. I'm going to answer a couple of questions I have written down. Do you miss Massachusetts? Well, so I'm actually in Massachusetts right now. I'm staying with family. I left New York about a month and a half ago now. I was going to stay, but after, you know, seeing how my own anxiety was manifesting and talking to some of my family, it just seemed like the better, safer idea. And I'm very grateful and very lucky that I was able to leave for a little while. So I am in Massachusetts, and it is kind of strange being back for so long, because I haven't been back for such a long span since college. Okay, so I'm going to answer a couple of questions I have here. Rin Young asks, I don't normally get panic attacks or acute stress. Any tools from, I'm going to assume this word is expert, veterans? Panic attacks are something kind of particular. I would say they're separate from the feeling of anxiety. So if you're not familiar, a panic attack is kind of like a very sudden, it is a very physical, for most people, sensation. It can include so many different symptoms, but, you know, a lot of times it's kind of like sweating, you can't breathe very well, your chest can feel constricted, your heart might palpitate, but the thing that they kind of say is like an impending sense of doom is the way I always see it written, but there's a fear basically. And it feels like you're going to die, to be quite honest. So that's, you know, there's that / acute stress. They're hard. They suck. So for anyone having panic attacks right now, I'm so sorry. I feel you. They're really just terrible. They do pass, you know, they're more fleeting, I would say, than continuous or chronic anxiety or things like that. For me, the best thing is just to stay still somewhere and breathe deeply. And if I feel like it, drink some water. I don't like being touched during a panic attack, but I do like having someone nearby. It makes me feel safe. So, you know, it's different for everyone, but really just the breathing, anything that grounds you. So kind of like noticing tangible things around you, like counting or touching your fingers or something like that. Everybody has different coping mechanisms, but breathing and trying to focus on something in your periphery is helpful to me, because it reminds you that you're here and that you're not gonna die. Let's see. Colleen Murphy asks, any tips for making and sticking to a routine? I don't know if I'm the best person to ask, to be quite honest, because routine is difficult for me. I can make a routine, but the sticking to it is harder for me. I have been working on it in terms of like specifically mental health, because, you know, I just really need to manage it a little better in this crazy time. So I will share with you guys a piece of advice from my therapist, which is to start your morning in a way that really nourishes you. And I don't just mean that in terms of food, but just things that make you feel yourself. So for me, you know, I'm not an overwhelmingly morning person, but I don't really like to sleep in either. So I get up at a time that feels reasonable, and I will, you know, read a tarot card, for example. That's something that's helpful to me as a ritual. And I'll make myself a really good breakfast, because that's something that I really enjoy. In terms of sticking to a routine, I would say this. I've started a lot of things that, you know, like daily habits or daily routines or things like that. And I was like, okay, I'm going to stick to it. And then I forgot one day, or I fell off or something, or it slipped my mind. And that kind of ruins it for me, where it's difficult to pick it up again. And what changed that for me was allowing myself the space to not do it. So, you know, just to listen to myself day to day and just decide what makes sense for me in the moment. So trying to be consistent and trying to stick to it but giving myself the space to say, okay, you know what, today wasn't the day, and just trying to come back to it the next day. So, in terms of a routine, I would say whatever works for you. It really is individual. If you need specific blocks to do things, then plan out your day. If you want some flexibility, then, maybe do some anchors throughout the day, I like to call them, where you have something going on here, but then some free time. If you need social energy, try to schedule some FaceTimes or some phone calls with friends of yours. It's really just what works for you. Let's see if there's anything over here. Do you have any tricks to fight your anxiety when it arrives? Breathing. I know I keep saying it, but breathing is a big one. So I have a couple of things I do with breathing. A big one that's it's scientifically proven to kind of shift your brain from a fight or flight response to, oh, I'm okay, this is a safe place response, which is you inhale for 4, you hold for 7, and you exhale for 8. If that feels hard, especially if you're having shortness of breath, even inhales and exhales is great too. So 4 in, 4 out. And then if you want to add a hold in the middle, but that really helps. And usually I tap to count, which also helps because, again, physical things and grounding are helpful for me. And I try to distract myself. So whether that's something tangible, doing something like baking, something like that, or reading a book that's really engrossing, or watching a TV show that really needs my attention. You're trying to distract your brain from the anxiety, because the more empty space there is, the more room you have to be anxious, basically. Okay, let's see. I'm going to play a couple more songs, answer a couple more questions, and then we'll see how we're doing on time after that. Actually, so I'm going to pick the electric back up for this one. So this song I don't play a whole lot, actually, even live, because it's like a creature all its own, and it's a little bit dark. But we've been talking about this, so I think it'll be accurate. So I wrote this song basically to try to articulate the feeling of a panic attack, because it's a recent development for me. So the anxiety has been around longer for me than the panic attacks, and that was new. So of course, what did I do? Try to articulate it through music. So I play the song so little, actually, that it still only has a working title, which is Panic. But that's what it is. So here's Panic. No warning when it comes. I'm trying to. I'm just a walking woozy ways. It's heavy, something like deep in my chest. I can't breathe, I'm sinking. So save me, won't you come save me? I know just where this goes and how. My mouth is quiet, my head's right. I can't leave this body. Cry eyes in that space. All I do is wait, and I'm waiting for the past to leave, to leave, to leave, to leave. So that's Panic. Yeah, I'll do one more and then answer some questions. And then we will see if we have some time for a request or some extra questions. This one. This one I wrote, I don't know, about kind of just the strangeness of your early 20s and trying to figure out your direction, you know. But I think it's intertwined with kind of the process of mental health and what navigating that feels like when you're also trying to figure out your life direction. You know, it can be a lot of pressure. And I think we all put a lot of pressure on ourselves. And I think we're even more likely to do that right now. Because we feel like we should be doing something specific with our time, you know? So this is a song I wrote about that kind of pressure and the kind of feelings that I had looking toward the future at the time. And I think that I still have. So this is a song called Hope and Doubt. You guys, it's been so long since I played this. Oh, no, I got it. Here we go. Another night lying awake here. Police sirens calling my name. I thought that New York was through making me sore. But I'm not getting tough, I'm just the same. And everyone says I'm too young to think that I'm wasting my time. But when daylight comes falling and I'm still at the office, what else can I call it? I don't know if my life is for me, or if I just chose a safe street. And I don't know where I thought I would be by now, but all I've got Each street seems imaginary. The asphalt in places like brushstrokes, but hasty. I breathe and it might just give away. But I make well enough believe. I go out, don't break down. No, I can take care of it. So when my grandmother calls to say I'm doing so well, oh, she can't even tell. I don't know if my life is for me, or if I just chose to say straight. And I don't know where I thought I would be by now, but all I've got is hope and doubt in the same amount. And the dishes pile up again. I wanna run away again, but they say be patient. They say love you can change your mind 1,000 times. But what if I lose it? And I don't know if my life's for me. Oh, and I don't know where I thought I would be by now, but all I've got is hope and doubt in the same amount. Hope and doubt, hope and doubt in the same amount. So that's hope and doubt, which is exactly how I feel about this time, even if, you know, they're sometimes unequal. Let's see. Yeah, so I think I'm going to answer a few more questions, and then we might have some time for some requests. I try to leave some time at the end of all my live streams for requests, but, you know, it always depends on how late I am. Let's see. What do I still have down here for questions? Juliet Bennett asks, what's your go-to to instantly relieve some stress? I'm going to be honest and say it's hard to find something that is an instant stress reliever. For me, it takes a lot of time to decompress. And sometimes, you know, it's just not instant. I would say the quickest, one of the quickest, again, because my anxiety is so physical, is to just somehow reset my body a little bit. So a hot shower, a hot bath, both of those are great because it just makes my brain and my body come back together a little bit rather than be detached. Anything that makes me feel in my body. So I'm less good at this, but getting some exercise in. So just moving my body, you know, doing some yoga is great. I know I don't want to be that person who's like, you should try some yoga. I found it helpful because it gives me something to focus on in terms of like the movements of my body. So I'm breathing and I'm moving. Some people find meditation very helpful. You know, you sit and just focus on your breathing. It's not as helpful for me, to be honest, because this thing still is harder in terms of controlling my anxiety. But I would say something that gets you back in your body, that is a stress reliever. And talking to friends, talking to loved ones, big one. My people are very important to me. If you have a furry friend in the house, that's a great stress reliever. Dogs, cats, hamsters. I don't know what you have, but those are great. We love some friends in the house. Topaz Winters asks, I love this question. How do you find mental health coping mechanisms like therapy interact with those like tarot and astrology? And Topaz asks this because she knows that I am very much into tarot, astrology, etc. And I found this question actually really interesting because there's also kind of a growing trend of people relying on astrology right now. And I would say that the main connection I see between something like therapy and something like tarot or astrology is they're all ways that we try to understand ourselves. So I know for me personally, when I went into therapy, the goal was, I want to know why I am this way. I want to know why my brain does these things. And once I understand, I'll know how to shift them if they're unhealthy, So I think there's a lot of things like that. Tarot is one of them where you turn over a card and the meaning of tarot cards are purposely vague. And they're like that because they're relying on you as the person reading the card to make associations based on your own life and your own experiences. And astrology is similar, where, it's a way of understanding ourselves and our personalities and categorizing ourselves. I find, a lot of personality tests like that, like Myers-Briggs and the Enneagram and astrology, they're ways for us to understand ourselves. And I think there's plenty about mental health that echoes that, because who doesn't, want to know, like, why does my brain do this when it's something frustrating? It's like, why does my brain do these particular things or fall into these particular patterns? So I think it's really just, we want to understand ourselves a little better. And at best, we want to kind of regain control, or kind of take the reins and shift habits or patterns that we might feel are unhealthy or are doing us harm. I know that was the big reason I went into therapy. Was I was very against therapy, to be honest, for a long time. Not in terms of anyone else. I thought it was a great tool, but just I thought I didn't need it, which, I think is a very familiar narrative for a lot of people, where, we say other people, no problem, me, don't need it for a lot of things. And I have now flipped 180, and I am now the therapy poster child, because therapy has been really helpful for me to have, kind of a consistent support, and especially someone who has kind of a bird's eye view and an objective view on my life, whose only stake in my life is to help me process my life in a healthier way. And, totally acknowledge that therapy is not something that's available to everyone. It's hard to access. It's hard to find the right therapist. It's hard to find a therapist that is within your financial or health insurance means. Like, that's a big obstacle for a lot of people I know. So I'm incredibly grateful that, I have the access and that I have a really great therapist. I had another question about therapy here, actually, now that we're talking about it. Yeah, so not so much a question. I also asked people to share feelings if they felt like it. I'm going to keep this one anonymous just because it is a little bit of a sensitive subject. Just started therapy. Wish I could fast forward to diagnosis and get past the beginning. New equals scary. Totally feel you on that. New things are scary. And the beginning of therapy for me was also very scary, where, it was just so strange. I didn't really know what to talk about or how to talk about it. I will say this, think about why, if you're in therapy, or if you're going to therapy or considering it, think about why you're considering, or what you want out of it. 'Cause for me, it wasn't so much about getting a diagnosis as kind of, again, understanding my patterns and trying to find out how I could shift the ones that were more unhealthy for me or more harmful. And everybody's different. A diagnosis is helpful for some people because it puts a name to what it is and it feels concrete and clear cut. Some people don't want a name. They feel like that is a label, or they feel like it it's something they're going to have to carry around. And so they prefer to think of it as, just something that they're going to work through. So everybody's different, but I would say, yes, new things are scary. The beginning of stuff sucks. It's a change. It's hard to adjust. Give it some time. Remember that everything in mental health for me has been a process. Nothing has been instant. It's really a question of seeing how things progress over time and you making effort over time and remembering that things are not linear by any stretch of the imagination. It's, you make some progress, you lose some progress, you make some more progress, you lose a little bit, you make no progress, you lose a little bit. It's so not linear. So forgive yourself at every turn that you can, and be very gentle with yourself, because it's just hard. It's hard for anyone, especially right now, but just in general too. I'm going to go ahead and let's see, scroll through here. What's going on over here? Woo, you guys have been talkative. Oh, you guys are lovely. Argentina, the countries just keep piling up. I love it. Oh, I see some of you did. Yes, some of you have the vinyl that I did of Hope and Doubt for Least of All. That was almost 2 years ago, which is nuts. Let's see. It's interesting to me that Antidote was one of the first songs you wrote about mental health, since I've always felt like Hurricane Zone was really relatable for me. Someone has done their homework, because Hurricane Zone is an oldie of mine. I may play that because actually that's a pretty relevant one. My dog is absolutely rubbish at stress relief. Oh, well, I'm sure he's trying. But it's also good company. So I'm glad. I love that you have a cat named Turtle. That's great. That is fantastic. Let's see. 2 different diagnoses from 2 different therapists. Yep, that'll happen. I had a friend who went to, 5 or 6 therapists before she found someone that was right for her. So it really is a process. Really a process. Let's see. I'm seeing a couple of requests for Hurricane Zone, and I think that is a good song for what's going on right now. If I can get my guitar tuned. My goodness, it's been a minute. So for those of you who don't know, Hurricane Zone is an oldie of mine. I think it came out in 2014. I put it out a live video in 2014. I have not properly recorded it since, but I put the live version on my second EP, which is called Something to Win, which is on my Bandcamp. And I wrote it as someone who used to keep a lot of pretty negative feelings to myself, and used to compartmentalize a lot. I wrote it as a way to kind of explain to someone why I did that and why I am the way I am, and why it's hard for me to open up to people, because it's hard to open up. And I would say, this is a good little note to end on. I don't want to keep you guys too long, so I think I will cap it off with this song and then maybe answer a couple more questions. But the point really of this live stream for me was to, express how important it's been for me and my mental health to really be open and be vulnerable with people, because it really just opens you up to a whole new set of coping mechanisms and, a whole new support network. And I was keeping things to myself for a very long time, and it was, there's some thunder out here. It was difficult to manage all of that on my own. But this song was kind of a way for me to explain why I kept things to myself. But I would say, if you can't open up, try. It's hard. It sucks. It can be really scary, but I think more often than not, I've found opening up to people has been a relief to me in the long run. I would also just add, I forgot to put this in the comments. I did, if you want to scroll all the way up to the beginning of the live chat, I did put my Venmo and PayPal handles if you're so inclined to tip me for the show. A portion of any tips I make tonight are going to go to the National Alliance for Mental Health. I think that's the right acronym, NAMI. So they are a huge grassroots organization in the US, and they basically spread mental health awareness, and they try to get resources to people who need them the most. Some of the representatives have been mentioned in national coverage on how to manage mental health during the pandemic, and they're really great. And May is National Mental Health Month, so if you feel so inclined to support an artist and do a good thing, scroll up in the live chat for my handles. This is Hurricane Zone as a near hurricane plays outside. This is a mood, you guys. You always say things will get better. How would you know when you have never had a single scar to show? Go on, let your mouth red. Call me close and hard to read. But people aren't books, my love, and I'm more like your crumpled sheets. Warmth is hiding underneath. Please try to understand. I've taught myself to hold my breath, even if I burn my lungs. To do otherwise would mean letting the ocean out of my throat. How to do that, I don't know, 'cause I've never lived in a hurricane zone. I've never lived in a hurricane zone. The truth is right, so I sandpaper my edges. I sugarcoat, I always rhyme, but I'm trying not to. Is that not enough for you? Please try to understand. I've taught myself to hold my breath, even if I burn my lungs. To do otherwise would mean letting the ocean out of my throat. How to do that, I don't know, 'cause I've never lived in a hurricane zone. I've never lived in a hurricane zone. I'm still learning to be a river and let things go. So let me go. I know how to ride low, keep composure. There is such a risk swear you'll still be there when I've grown over. Please try to understand. I've taught myself to hold my breath, 'cause it hurts less to be known. Do otherwise would mean letting the ocean out of my throat. I know that would drown us both, 'cause I know we never lived in a hurricane zone. We never lived in a hurricane zone. I'm still learning to be a river and let things grow. So help me grow. Don't you always say things can get better? So that was hurricane zone. Yes, Boston does feel like a hurricane zone at this particular moment. There was a lot of thunder just now. Wowza. All right, I am going to call it because I don't want to go later than I usually do. Let's see. Anything else to answer? Do you listen to Sarah Bareilles? She's my favorite artist. Yes, I adore Sarah Bareilles. She has been one of my biggest musical influences since I was, a teenager. So we're talking 10 plus years, you know. She's stunning. I love everything she's written, pretty much. On that note, I will recommend to all of you a song of hers that is very apt for this moment, which is Satellite, which is off her song, The Blessed Unrest. It makes me cry every time I listen to it. So prepare for some tears maybe, but it's a really lovely song for anyone who's feeling a little alone or disconnected or lonely right now. So, thank you guys so much for joining me. This has been so lovely. I really hope you've gotten something out of this show, whether it was a little distraction or some answers or some tips or some music. You know, I hope to give you just a little something, because it's a really weird, scary, awful time. Let's be honest about it. And I really just want to bring you all a little softness. So thank you so much for joining me. This has been really, really lovely. You guys have been such a delightful audience. Once again, if you feel inclined to tip, just scroll all the way to the top of the live chat. And there's a comment there that I posted with my Venmo and PayPal handles. And once again, a portion of those tips, whatever they may be, are going to go to the National Alliance for Mental Health, who are doing some great work, because May is National Mental Health Month. And because May is National Mental Health Month, we still have half of the month left. So, you know, whatever that looks like for you, take some care of yourself. Be gentle with yourself. Forgive yourself, because now is really not the time to put pressure on yourself. We're all going through something that's really hard and strange and is a huge upheaval. So cut yourself some slack. Sending a lot of love to all of you. Thank you so much for streaming this and, you know, tuning in from so many places. That is so cool to see and just warms my little heart. So yeah, I will see you guys hopefully soon for another one of these. But till then, good night, good morning, wherever you are. Talk soon.